It's Jason here. As you can see, I'm trying out this new presenter mode, so we'll see if this will work. So bear with me, boys, and obviously yourself as well, Kat. Looking at what's going on, so this term is a big term. We have, I believe, 4 tables now on, so should say 3 tables meeting in person and 2 tables online, which is a big change for me. So both Pete, yours and also Bilal's table will be online, at least for a little while anyway, with Bilal's. We'll see how that go. And I just want to say I am looking for ways to interact with you more, and I like to do that. I kind of feel like there's a few of you that I haven't seen for a while. So, I'll see what I can do on Discord and other things like that. But anyway, messages, what's going on? Beginning of term. So if you haven't already, can you please put your booking in for the term? It's still open. Just pay the $40 for the whole term. It is, so $40 means we have an 11-week term this time. That is $5 a term, at $5 a session, but you get 3 sessions for free. So 11 times 5, 55, minus off 15, 40. That's how we get to the number. And what does your, what are you providing? Well, I'll be looking at getting access to Spelljammer when it comes out, and also Dragonlance, which honestly I'm really looking forward to. But at the same time, I'm a little bit worried because they didn't engage Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, and that's kind of like not having George Lucas involved in Star Wars, and we all know how that ended. But anyway, moving on. So this term we are going to be looking at an overview of the Bible before D&D starts. But tonight, what I wanted to talk to you about is why on earth I do these weird things at the beginning. And I know I've probably talked to a few of you about that before, but I just want to explain to you how I see this understanding of this religious part at the start, and why someone would be crazy enough to want to create a community like D&D and yet involve some religious stuff. Most people go, oh, that sounds really, kind of like the juxtaposition here is really odd. I first want to ask the question, that's a really broad question, what is religion? So religion, we've got a beautiful picture here of the Yule, the pagan cycles. But a religion traditionally is seen as a belief in one or more spiritual beings. And that's mainly because it's not until recently did we have cultures that didn't believe in spiritual beings. In fact, that is the norm for all of history, human history, as far as we can tell, as far back to Neanderthal sort of thing. As far as we can tell archaeologically, we have always been a religious creature. Religion just seems to be part of who we are. And that's part of the problem, because defining it becomes difficult. It's hard to step out of yourself. Others will define religion as dogmatic and irrational beliefs, believing in things like miracles and crazy stuff like that. But just saying that, you end up betraying that you actually have beliefs of your own, such as that this world is just material, that there is no spiritual. That is actually an assumption, an axiom, which it's hard to prove. And so there's a more broad understanding of religion, and which is that religion is really the norms and values and beliefs which a people share. When you start to widen religion out, because we no longer always necessarily believe in a spiritual being as such, and no, atheism wasn't the first. If you have a look at the official, not Hindu, Buddhist religion has no spiritual being. You just become nothing at one with the universe as such. So in some ways, that's hence why the popularity of Buddhism, it's a spiritual materialist sort of religion as such, but it has no belief in necessarily spiritual things officially, in the sense of no spirit inside a person. So religion is actually quite broad. My definition sees religion as the norms and the values and beliefs which a people share normally to live out the good or lack thereof. So the lack thereof I've thrown in is just in case you're a nihilist and you want to see the world burn. I know a couple of you guys love to play that way in D&D, so why not? But basically, it's what we set out to live the good life. And so just in case you think that I'm crazy, that I shouldn't be kind of spreading out this definition, well, have a look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia has no reason to agree with me. Religion is usually defined as a social cultural system designated behaviors, practices, moral beliefs, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, organizations that relate to human, supernatural, transcendental, and spiritual elements. However, there's no scholarly consensus of what precisely constitutes a religion. And it's mainly because of this, that we acknowledge that norms and values come from somewhere, and they tend to come from your religion. So what's that got to do with us? Well, you're involved in religious things, whether you want to or not. Whenever people gather, religion is necessary. Sometimes it's explicit, but mostly it's implicit. So there is a community of standards. Whenever you're involved in a community of standards, it is to some degree a religious context. It's a context which informs you of the norms and values, which means GWRPG has its own norms and values. You have terms and conditions. Whenever you sign on to that, you are signing not just a legal contract, but you are signing a sense in which your behavior, you're restricting yourself, you are putting some form of dogma on yourself. Community policy and guidelines, again, are another similar form of what I would call 21st century religion as such. And you can see that how, from me as a religious person, watching people talk about safety. Safety has become a new religion. I've got to make this a safe place. Got to do this, got to do that. Safe, 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 safe. If you were an alien looking at our current culture and you were doing some sort of anthropological analysis, you would start to think safety is our God, because it seems to be the number one thing we care about. So in that sense, theologians like myself that see it wider than just, I believe in a God, are right. But what about Greater West? Well, we have a view here that I've been trying to create in our community. I know not all of you believe in God, and that's fine. You take what parts of this you can. So my main philosophy has to create a place where people can love the Lord their God, whoever that may be, God, gods, whatever, with all their mind, body, strength, and soul, and love their neighbor as you would love yourself. And that includes loving your enemy. So there's a couple of things there that are a bit different. I believe in creating a place where we show love for our neighbor and our enemy. And that is actually where things are a bit different in Christianity compared to other forms of T's and C's and community guidelines. But anyway, the first part, love the Lord your God with all your mind, body, and soul and strength. Well, for me, morality comes from there, and it's hard to find a place other than. So Greater West, we talk about religion, philosophy, and theology and ethics because, well, we're human. That's exactly what we do. We have always been religious. Even when we're irreligious, we're religious. It's from a Christian perspective because I am a Christian. There are times and places for us to engage and talk about the format and, the other options and all that kind of stuff. In fact, as you guys know, I've done an overview of different religions. But really, I expect you guys at Greater West to be able to express your beliefs. So, especially for those of you that, might come into the hall, if you are wearing a pride flag during Pride Month, whatever, okay? Tolerance is a Christian virtue, which I believe in living by. And just because we might disagree on sexual ethics doesn't mean I'm not going to play D&D with you. It seems to me just completely stupid to stop playing Dungeons and Dragons with someone because you disagree on sexual ethics. And also, my expectation is that you'll listen and listen with an open mind, which is harder than you think, because in order to listen with an open mind, you must first understand what you already think. Because unless you understand what you think, then it's very hard to understand what someone else who doesn't think like you thinks. Now, I see this all the time in discussions on the internet where people have no idea that they're just talking past each other because they have no understanding of the other person and their worldview and where they come from. And that's so important in a pluralistic society that we live in. Our D&D groups are pluralistic. We have people from different faiths, different backgrounds, different worldviews. And normally when we have a disagreement with how to treat someone, it's actually because there's a disagreement in our worldviews. And in order to listen with an open mind, I find you need to actually understand your own worldview to do that. So it's not easy, but my expectation is that you will try. And that means for you guys online, I hope you don't just skip over this. That's my biggest fear, that you guys do that. And I'm doing this for no reason. I'm just talking to myself. Anyway, this term, as I said, I want to take us through the central story of the Bible. It's what I would consider the unifying message that unites all 66 books. Look, as an old Christian song used to be, and if you're Catholic, there's more. But it unites 66 books, 40 authors, or redactors is probably a better word for it sometimes, compared to what we understand as an author. They didn't just make everything up. There were historical things. There are previous traditions, oral and written, which they incorporate into their piece. But anyway, it's a message that unites all 66 books, 40 authors over about 40,000 years of revelation. I'm including oral history here. That's not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing to even claim that there is a unifying message. And I want you to experience what it's like to kind of realize there actually is. I've done this a few times with people before, explained that the unifying message as such, it's called, for those who want to be technical, it's called biblical theology. It has two premises. Scripture interprets Scripture. In other words, if I want to know the definition of a word, the first place I go is to the Scripture to help me to understand in different contexts how something is understood, rather than imposing my own understanding. So I don't impose Marxism into it. I don't impose intersectionality into the Bible. I don't interpret the Bible using my own kind of lexicon. I use the Bible to interpret the Bible. And you might say, oh, that sounds odd. But that's how we do most things since the Enlightenment is the great thing in the Enlightenment is that's exactly how we started to do things. We figured out that that was the best way. You let material things interpret material things. So you create the scientific method, which is all about, having science interpret science rather than imposing upon it some sort of metaphysical premise. And that was the point of the scientific method anyway. But there are times in which it's appropriate to impose a metaphysical, but first and foremost, and you might go, what the hell's metaphysical? But anyway, first and foremost, you let the Scripture interpret Scripture. If I want to know why Jesus calls himself the Son of Man, I go and check out what the Son of Man means in the Scriptures before I go and check out what Son of Man might mean in maybe Roman and Greek contexts of the 2nd century, or before I decide to add in maybe a Marxist interpretation of what the Son of Man is. Believe you me, there are Marxist interpretations of the gospel out there. And the first thing they do is when they read the gospel, they impose power dynamics. They ignore what the text actually says to a large degree and just impose their own kind of dynamics. But anyway, what I want to kind of show you is that the Bible can be read like other human documents, but it's useful to know. It's useful to know what the forest looks like, so when you're looking at the tree, you don't get lost. And this is the part of seeing that there is actually a story in the Bible. When you see the story, it helps you when you pick up something like Leviticus, which is all about what priests are supposed to do with animals. Okay, I got to cut its throat, splash the blood. What on earth has this got to do with living at all for God? What's it got to, and it's taking that step back and seeing the main point of the story, and then seeing how that fits into that main part helps you understand the particulars. So basically, I want to just help you see the forest for the trees when it comes to the Bible. Most people who try to read the Bible get stuck at some point, usually around Leviticus if they read from the beginning. Not a good idea. If you're going to read the Bible, read the New Testament first, then go back to the Old. But anyway, look, I hope that's helpful. I hope it's also helpful to see how religion is a little bit, it's up there for definition, which means that I dare say you are more religious than you realize, especially you guys that claim to be atheists. You have, it's quite funny how religious atheists can be when you look at it as such, but that's a side point, and I might be bringing in some of those side points as we go through. Anyway, guys, I do miss you, but it is awesome that you're online, and have a good night. Let me pray. Gracious Father, I give you thanks for this time to discuss and think. Father, help us to integrate the online groups into the community better. Help me to do that in a way that is beneficial to all. And yeah, amen. All right, guys, enjoy your night. See ya.